Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my random horror review series. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, episode 95, coming at you live and direct. Alright, so we are going to take it back to 1972 with Bob Clark's first, well, actually technically second directed film, first horror film that he did in a streak of now what we would call bona fide cult classics. And we are going to be talking about Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Yes, another release from VCI. This seems to be their crown jewel in their collection. They've released, I think it was like the 30th anniversary DVD. Then they did put this out on Blu-ray a few years back, and now we're on to the 4K. So before I get into the synopsis and talk about this film, which I've talked about this film many, many times in the past and stuff, I'm just going to do a little bit of a comparative to the Blu-ray that came out a couple years ago and to the 4K. Just talk about, the difference in, transfer and sound and, a little bit of the features and stuff like that. So here's the 4K, right, which is a three disc set. And basically what we got here, it's got different artworks and stuff like that. So the 4K obviously is the 4K transfer. And I will say the 4K transfer is a big upgrade from the Blu-ray. Not like ginormous, but it definitely does look really good. It sounds a lot better also. Here's the original Blu-ray and stuff. Now, the difference between the two, the major big differences between here, besides this one being, a lot better looking and sounding, feature-wise. Now, they always put out a ton of features for this film. Now, on the Blu-ray that came out a couple years ago, it has a ton of features, but the reason why you might want to keep this, if you really want, to keep the feature of it having the UK version of the film on this Blu-ray. It also has different liner notes and stuff. So getting into the 4K, the difference here, all those features are ported over into the 4K. But the difference here is there's a brand new 2022 Q&A with Alan Ormsby, which is pretty cool. But it also has a documentary, a full-length documentary called Dreaming of Death, Bob Clark's Horror Films. It says 90-minute documentary on here, but it's actually 72 minutes. I did watch it. So there is a little bit of difference. And of course, there's different liner notes inside here also. So there's a little bit of difference. I mean, like I said, this one has the UK version of the film where this one actually doesn't. So that's really what the difference is. I'll be showing a close-up of all this so you guys can read the features and stuff. But so that is the big difference, because someone actually asked me a little while ago what the difference was between these two in feature-wise, and that is the difference basically. So but it is worth it though, because the documentary on here is a documentary that covers Bob Clark's horror films, which is, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, on to Death Dream, Black Christmas, and of course Murder by Decree, which, isn't necessarily a straight bona fide horror film, but it's a really good film with like Donald Sutherland and stuff like that. It's a Jack the Ripper story that he had done a couple years after Black Christmas and stuff. So, but yeah, definitely worth it for the documentary and the Q&A, and it's kind of cool that they did port all over the the features and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so that's the difference. And of course, the artworks on all the releases are different. I mean, you got 3 different artworks on this. You got 2 different artworks on this. The DVD, which I do have actually at my cabin, has totally cool artwork. I think that was the 30th anniversary, so that's pretty cool too. So, so I guess when 8K comes out or whatever the next format's going to be, we'll see another version with different artwork and probably new features. Who really knows? But anyways, so the 50th anniversary, so it might have even been the 30th. So was it 20 years ago the DVD came out? No, it couldn't have been 20 years. Maybe it was 35 anniversary. I don't know. So Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Quick little synopsis on this one, because we probably all know the movie. Basically, this one follows a group of theater actors led by Alan Ormsby, and his character's name is simply Alan. He's a very eccentric dude. He's, putting together this play and stuff like that. So what they do is they travel by boat to this island, where this island basically is just a burial ground for like criminals and stuff like that. And he wants to go there. He's got ulterior motives and stuff. He wants to kind of fuck with his actors a little bit, play some tricks on them, do some hoax, satanic rituals and things like that. And that's what he does. He fucks with them. He plays some jokes and shit like that. And then they do these satanic rituals and stuff. But it doesn't go as planned, because they're supposed to be fictitious, even though he's kind of thinking it's going to work and stuff. But it actually does work. The dead rise from the graves, and then we got a film where, carnage ensues. So that's basically the premise of the film. Now, my thoughts on children shouldn't play with dead things. My thoughts haven't really changed on the movie in the last, 15, 20 years. I've seen this movie so many times on like every single format, from like VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to 4K. And I will say every single time this movie comes out, it actually looks and sounds better. Now, this is definitely the best. I did do a comparative between the Blu-ray and this does look a lot better, and it definitely sounds a lot better. So it's a huge upgrade in that aspect. Let's face it, this movie was super low budget. I think Bob Clark directed or produced this movie for like 50 grand. It's got a very small cast. It's set in all one location. It's shot on 35 millimeters. So, with all those type of elements, it's going to be a little bit more low budget and stuff. But I think what they did with the movie overall for the budget actually works quite a bit. First and foremost, this movie is like a prequel to Bob Clark's world of filmmaking, because there's a lot of things inside this movie that he ends up using, like in Death Dream and Black Christmas and Porky's and fucking A Christmas Story and, Rhinestone, like all these type of movies that he directed, Murder by Decree. There's little bits and pieces of early Bob Clark that you can see throughout his film. So if you watch all those movies and you go back and watch this one, you're like, holy shit, early Bob Clark was actually kind of a genius filmmaker, because he had this style and he put these things into his films. It's actually really kind of cool. So he was quite a visionary. He was a dude that everyone said that he was very easy to work with, and he always kind of allowed the actors and people to do certain things in the film if it worked, like that you just kind of discussed. He'd be a hands-on director and stuff like that. So, and it kind of shows in this one too, because Alan Ormsby, who stars in the film, who actually penned the script for this movie with Bob Clark, it's very direct, and the movie is very smartly written also, which I think a lot of people kind of overlook, because this one takes about an hour to get going. It's got a lot of dialogue. It's got a lot of just kind of slow scenes, and it's kind of more dubbed as like a comedy than a horror film, until the horror starts about an hour into the movie. But I love the build-up, man. The atmosphere is great. The cemetery setting is really cool. Once the zombies come, they look really cool and stuff like that. Because Alan Ormsby actually, not only was he penning and starring in the film, he actually wanted to be more of a special effects artist, which, he ends up doing a lot of the effects on the zombies in this one too. And I think he also starred in Death Dream too, and I think he worked with Tom Savini. Tom Savini's first film was actually Death Dream, and they worked together, and that was kind of cool, because Death Dream was, kind of a film based on the horrors of Vietnam, and Tom Savini actually we all know that he came from Vietnam. He was a photographer there, so he actually saw the real things, and he was like perfect for that. So Alan Ormsby worked on that too as a special effects artist and starred in the film too. But you can really tell the little antidotes of Bob Clark in this film, but I like the comedy. Like it's kind of subtle in its approach. There's kind of goofiness, but I do like the dialogue. I think Alan Ormsby writes, the whole satanic and the whole angle of it's almost written from a theater perspective too, the way the dialogue is kind of given and stuff, and the way the performance are. It feels very theatric, even though it's a super low budget film, which makes any sense. But yeah, like that's the main problem with a lot of people, is that I think they want the horror elements in this film to come out a lot sooner than they actually do. I would have liked that too, but it was budget constraints. Honestly, you couldn't have zombies throughout the whole film, because it would have been quite a feat in, for budgetary constraints. It is pretty cool, because like I think a lot of people don't realize, when the zombies do come out of the graves and stuff, there's literally 50 graves that were built for this, 50 zombies. So there was a lot of work put into this. There was a lot of zombies and things like that. It's definitely in the realm of Night of Living Dead, which was popular at the time and stuff. So this is kind of his take on that, a more comedic version. Maybe not with like the pounding of social commentary and things like that, but if you're looking for something, you could probably find it in there too. But overall, I really like this movie. I like the sounds in this movie. The soundtrack's really eerie and creepy. It's kind of fitting for the island setting, which is very atmospheric. It has that smog, it has that smoke look. It's a very dark film, and I really like the kind of abandoned shack, I guess, kind of cabin on the island, the look of it and stuff. It just looks so raggedy and perfect for a setting. But that right there kind of screams Night of Living Dead also. They're very secluded in this one little house and things like that and stuff. It's a very nihilistic film. It really is a very nihilistic film. It has this comedic approach to it, but then, when the shit starts going south on them, it really goes fucking south on them. And it has this great ending, which is very reminiscent of what Fulci did in Zombie. And, it's kind of a predecessor to that. I don't know if Fulci had ever seen that before, but just the fact of like, the zombies getting on the boat and things like that. I'm assuming everyone's seen this one, but this movie's like 50 years old. Let's face it. Come on. But yeah, it's very nihilistic what happens to all the characters, and it leaves you kind of looking at the end going, oh, and that's where that's the connection between Black Christmas also and this movie too, is the endings are very, very similar in that aspect of how he shot it and stuff. So, but Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, I think, is a fun film. I had a lot of fun rewatching it last night. Like I said, I've seen this movie. I seem to watch this movie every couple of years. It's ridiculous how often I watch this one. When I first watched this film, I think back in the 90s, man, I watched it on one of the worst VHS tapes. Like, I couldn't see a fucking thing. I literally couldn't see anything. Like, I remember when they get off the boat and they get onto the island and shit. Like, I was like, where are they? I thought they were still on the boat. Like, it was ridiculous. So the strides in technology have made this film a lot more prominent, a lot more visually stimulating over the years. So, but yeah, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things then. I think it's a bona fide cult classic. It's not if you were to pick apart this film, I'd be like, okay, that's, it's fair enough. It's fair enough. I'm still coming in at 7.5 out of 10. I think it's a really great first film for Bob Clark. But then he went on to Death Dream and Black Christmas and stuff. And those films are just so, the elevation in filmmaking and in style and commentaries and just everything is really good. But one thing I like about Bob Clark is that he always manages to bring out the best in his actors. No matter what the budget on his film, whatever it is, he always has these great performances from everybody. Alan Ormsby's really good in this movie for what he is. He's a very eccentric dick type weirdo. Like, he's just such a fucking weirdo. I mean, with the whole Orville thing and stuff like that, the main zombie in this film, it's so bizarre and creepy, and like how he has a certain power over his his actors and stuff. It's very well accentuized to the viewer, like how he manages to captivate the screen. I love the way it's written. So, I don't mind films with dialogue as long as it's entertaining and stuff, but it is to me. Children Should Play with Dead Things, the 50th 4K anniversary, ridiculous. I recommend this release especially if you're a fan of the film. And like I said, it's up to you if you want to upgrade for a little bit better picture and sound if you have the Blu-ray. But it is worth it, to have the documentary, which, like I said, I did watch the documentary. So, but yeah, and there's a ton of features. There's just literally a ton of features on here, which is so cool for a film like this. But yeah, but 7.5 out of 10. I think that's pretty much what I rate it every single time. I could probably bump it up to an 8. It doesn't really matter. Ratings for dummies, but it is what it is. So, like I said, VCI. And the funny thing about this, I noticed, I don't know if you'll be able to see that at all, but VCI used the old 4K logo on here. I thought that was so intriguing that they did that. I hadn't seen that in a while. Very interesting, but yeah, so yeah, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. They always come in with the artworks, man. Always come in with the artworks. But I think that's everything I have on the movie. So that is going to conclude episode. What did I say? 95. Episode 95. All right. So I'll be back soon with some more, and hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave comments down below, and I'll talk to you later. And as usual, deuces.